Hello, welcome back to Becoming Better Together in Mindset and Business with Brie. And today we have a very special guest with us. Welcome, please, Chef Andres Hinojosa. He was raised with a passion for food instilled by his grandma Yaya, who showed Andres so much love through the food she cooked. Warm pots of soup and fresh baked bread always inspire nostalgic memories for Chef. But entering the industry after graduating culinary school, he found that the fine dining scene was far from the warm memories that Yaya cultivated. Food wasn't love. It was just thankless hard work. Working in kitchens of high-end hotels like the Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, and Grand Del Mar hotels in Chicago, San Francisco, and San Diego, Chef was paying his dues like so many in the industry do, working long, long hours, getting yelled at by stressed out bosses, and being constantly underappreciated and exposed to the toxic culture that underlies the restaurant industry. But he didn't want to just be another stressed out head chef, making life miserable for young cooks working their way through the ranks. Instead, he branched out to start his own business as a personal chef. Now, Chef is able to share his love that his grandmother shared with him through the food he loves. His business now handles 30 to 40 cook events per month, and he doesn't even have to do any more of the cooking. He's able to pay his team well and give them the lives they deserve while enjoying more flexibility to share his passion and knowledge with fellow chefs by launching chefpreneur. After creating a business and a lifestyle that he had once thought absolutely impossible, Chef feels as though he's been called upon by God to share this knowledge with all the cooks and chefs out there who need it. Outside of work, Andres savors the freedom he now has to spend plenty of time with his wife and 5 daughters at their home near Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome, Chef. It is a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you so much, Brie, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited too. It has been a pleasure to get to know you so far. And now I want to introduce my audience to you and really see what's possible in so many different avenues of business when you get a dream and the right mindset in place.
Awesome. I'm excited. Yeah, whatever I can impart, and definitely just an honor to be here and be in front of you and your entire tribe here. So I'm excited to get underway.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, let's dive right into how we got connected about the theme of mindset. Tell me in your path so far, from going from stressed out chef doing what you were trained to do, what kind of mindset did you have then versus becoming your own entrepreneur, following your passion where you're at right now?
Ooh, that's a tough one because I feel like I'm not even the same person, to be honest with you. I think that when I started, you're so caught up in what I call the nearsightedness of, it's kind of like the effect that you have when you're going to dive off of a high diving board for the first time. You're just kind of sometimes engulfed by the fear of just taking that first step. When you realize that once you kind of jump off that diving board and you make it, your brain kind of transforms and switches to like, what else is possible? And I think that if you continue to pursue that, it becomes, I don't want to say like a habit or a lifestyle, but your mind continues to expand, and you almost set a pattern in your mind of saying like, man, what else is possible? Like if I was able to do that, maybe I'm able to do this. And that's really, I think, the steps. And from honestly, when I first started, that's how it was. I was really engulfed in fear and just saying like, I don't even know if this is going to work. What am I getting myself into? And then you see a little bit of traction, a little bit of momentum, and then it's like, you just continue to grow from there. And so, yeah, I hope that answered your question, but basically it's like just taking that, it's almost like mindset is a muscle that you have to continue to exercise and have a belief system that, what you want to set out and accomplish is actually possible, and actually believe it and then take action behind it. So, yeah, it's hard. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's hard for me to sometimes relate to some of the chefs that are in that position right now, because it was, I remember it, but then I don't remember because it was so long ago, but it's like, I don't even know if I would recognize that man anymore in myself. So.
Do you remember at what point you kind of had that light bulb for yourself about realizing the difference in the mindset then and now?
That's a great question. I think awareness is something that which sounds, it can sound very hodgy-podgy in a way, but I think it was really my awareness of really realizing that. So when I stepped out and I really started to pursue my dream and my passions, you don't see results right away. But I think that early on, one of the things that really helped me, I guess, where really helped me make a mindset shift was I read a lot of books. I read a lot of books, and so many successful people always talk about really, kind of really celebrating any win, right? And I think sometimes we think the win has to be the finish line, but that's actually not the case, right? If you're looking at a marathon, if you're looking at, even just like some of these crazy Olympic swimming things that they do, where it's, where you're passing the baton, in the Olympics, it's like there's levels of the race that you have to calculate to see how the end is going to turn out. And I feel like I became more aware once I started to see one win and then another win, and they were small wins. It wasn't like, oh, my whole thing changed. Like, still living with my sister, still kind of on my back. But it was like, oh my gosh, I just made, $1,000 on my client and they gave me a $300 tip. Like, okay, like that doesn't solve my problems, but that gave me a taste to say, well, if I could do it once, I can do it 10 times. I could do it 12 times. I can do it 15 times. So how do I do that? So I think it really was about the awareness of, as well, like shifting into seeing what's possible and really celebrating the win. I would say that that's a huge piece of it. And to really tell your audience, like, they should celebrate every win. That really builds momentum in your mind. Although some people might be like, well, you haven't arrived. You're like, yeah, of course I haven't arrived, but I've left the shore. And I'm in the race. So,
ooh, I love that. I'm glad that you're using it now. I use a lot of sailing analogies, so that makes me laugh. Like, you have to plug all the holes in your boat before you can put your sail up and sail in the direction that you want to.
I love
and
that.
I think there's so many times, I know we've talked about kind of the mentality of a chef, how it's just a little different based on how you were trained and the mentality you guys all carry.
Definitely. I probably equate chefs in the professional realm as pirates. They feel like there's a camaraderie where the only people that get them are other pirates. I know that sounds bad to say. Okay. And I'm not talking about maybe some Somali pirates, no pun intended, but like just in general of like having they're kind of those rebels. They feel, it's very difficult when you have an industry or career that doesn't fit the mold. If you talk to someone who's selling insurance, sitting behind a cubicle, which honestly can be mind-numbingly dead as well. Don't get me wrong. Everything has highs and lows. Yeah. But whether you're in a cubicle selling insurance or you're doing telecommunications or you're doing, telemarketing or your customer support or you're sitting behind a desk, as a secretary, it doesn't really matter. There's some level of relation. But with chefs, it's very difficult because, it's a high stress environment in a kitchen. There's milliseconds between, with all due respect, having a plate come out flawless and having it come out disastrous, right? There could be, there's certain temperatures on food, and then there's certain orders that you're getting out, and it's a very much like mixing a messy, crazy, sweaty orchestra. So there's a lot of things going on, and then it takes a physical toll and a mental toll. I mean, really, it's like you see a lot of pictures that you've probably seen on Facebook, even people that aren't in the industry, where they see a chef sitting on a milk crate, like scarfing down a PB&J sandwich for 30 seconds at 1:00 in the morning. Those are like real images. Those are what really happens. Or a lot of times I don't, any of the professional cooks that are maybe in your tribe at all are going to hear this podcast. Might understand that like a lot of these high-end restaurant chefs, they'll go out in McDonald's after at 1:30 in the morning and get food. And so like it takes a toll on your mental health, on your physical health. And so it's really hard to relate sometimes the chef environment with other careers because of the amount of levels of pressure and stress. Now, I will say, thank God we're cooking food. And I used to remind myself and my cooks, even when I was in the industry, in the traditional industry per se, we are just cooking food. Okay. Thank God we're not doing brain surgery, and we've had, 36-hour shift on that part. So kudos to the doctors and the surgeons and things like that are on call, because somebody's life is in your hands. Plus you have the stress and the pressure. but that's probably the only relatable thing that we have. So yeah, it's very, which is also sometimes hard as well to have the chefs understand what is possible, because they've been so encapsulated and they don't really know how to relate to other industries and careers. They don't know how to, they feel like they're not their tribe, right? So they automatically put up this barrier like, well, we're pirates. We've had a rough life. Usually a typical pirate, if you look at them, it's like, they were the abandoned ones, probably orphans or whatever. And it's like, I'm going to go be a pirate, right? Because it's like, I got no family. I got nothing to lose. And unfortunately, chefs can be that way. So it can be very tough to get through their mindset and allow them to understand and see what's possible, to kind of smell the flowers when they're not used to smelling the flowers. So yeah, it's challenging.
Okay. I understand that completely. What made you different though? Like, what was the piece that unlocked you looking through the lens of possibility? Can you walk yourself back and remember that?
Yeah, I think this is for everybody. I think it's all about your pain tolerance. And when you have so much pain to a point where like you have to change, like, unfortunately, that's when people change. That's when people wake up that's what happened to me. I remember the day that I came into work. I was an executive chef making six figures, making good money, but I never saw my family on their birthdays, on holidays. I mean, I was working 6-7 days a week, 12, 14-hour shifts, so I'm coming in at 7:00 in the morning. And I remember one parking lot in Carlsbad, California, coming to the resort, and I'm just sitting there in my car for 10 minutes. Like, I really don't want to be here. And it was so bad to the point where it was like, I was starting to get almost into a depressive state. Like, I did not want to go in. It had nothing to do with, from the outside, people are, oh, you're making six figures. You're the executive chef. You got the Egyptian cotton coat on and all this stuff. And it's like, I just was over it. I was over the politics. I was over not being able to see my family. I'm a huge family guy. I love my wife to death. I love my kids. They're everything in the world to me. I was never able to go to church on Sunday. I mean, it was kind of like, okay, I'm providing for them, financially, but really, if I really divided up my hours, by the way, it wasn't that good financially, to be honest, but salary wise, it was good financially. And I think that everybody has a breaking point where they're like, enough is enough. And unfortunately, a lot of chefs have gotten divorces and stuff because their spouses don't understand, or they don't want to look for other opportunities to change. And so something has to give. One side's going to give. And so I think, and you can probably testify to this, Brie, with how you coach, is like, unfortunately, people have to feel enough pain to say, like, I got to change. It's almost like, yeah, I got to lose weight. I got to get healthier. Yeah, they got to, and then all of a sudden the doctor's like, yeah, you got type 2 diabetes. And all of a sudden you're like, I got to change. Right. And unfortunately that pain, but that's, it's hard to be preventative sometimes when we're so in ourselves. I think that was why I was able to see it. And at that time, I'll be very honest with you, I didn't really see opportunity. I just knew that my fear of staying with the job and losing my family, like, honestly, like going down a point of like, I don't think I would have ever let it go down to a point of like, a divorce. But to be honest, I mean, I can't say what my wife, like how tolerant she would have been for how many years, but I was not seeing my kids grow up. Like, it was very emotional for me. So it was like, okay, that pain was greater than the pain of me knowing the unknown, like not knowing the unknown on the other side. Like, I was like, okay, if I don't give it a shot, like, whatever, like. And here's the reality. I think that people don't take a reality inventory. They don't look at things in reality sometimes. They go by their emotions and feelings, which, quote unquote, are your reality in the moment, but they're not the real reality. And I even teach my students to this point, like, let's just say the worst of the worst happened. And for me, honestly, it did. I kicked out of my townhome. I lost all my savings in 6 months when I started my first company, lived with my sister. But at the end of the day, it's like, oh, look what I had to do. If I had to get another job, like, there's always a job, right? So like, we forget that in our mind. There's always this, we can kind of, in a way, like, we always have that option again, right? So I think that was kind of also helped me with like you said, what made me different was like, I got to a point where it's like, okay, I'm going to look at what the worst that could happen is.
Yep.
And even if that happens, I'll probably be happier than where I'm at now. Like, let's face it. Like, and we lost our townhome, living with my sister. But even when I started my first business, like I was making oh my God, it was horrible. I was making no money at all. It was bad. I mean, we were, I had to pick between diapers and like buying bread for my farmer's market sandwiches, and it was bad. And I was so happy. I felt free.
Yeah.
My bank account was a wreck, but I felt free. And I got a taste of that. And that's really what led me. And it's like, well, if I have to just figure out the money part, which is the part that you can always get back, it's like, but you got to do something. Like I got to a point, and unfortunately, I think people won't take action unless, unfortunately, the pain is strong enough on them not taking the action. Or if we can show people like the future of saying, like, fast forward 20 years from now, that pain of regret is going to be far more hard to swallow than you losing some money or losing your savings or having to like buddy up with a friend for 6 months because you kind of hit rock bottom financially. Like, trust me, if you would go back, regret is the pill that you don't want to swallow.
Exactly.
And I just didn't want that. I said, hey, I'm young enough. At that time, to be honest, I was 28, 29 as the executive chef of a huge resort. I was overseeing 61 people making really good money. So, I mean, I was in my quote unquote prime, I guess you would say, age wise. And like, but I was already a father of 3, and I was like, I'm done. I can't, if 10 years from now, it's going to be a train wreck. So I'm like, this is not, I got to change this today. So that's really what happened.
Thank you for sharing that. From the outside looking in, could people see that in you, or was it the internal battle that you were like, I have to change this?
It was probably more the internal battle, but it did affect my outer demeanor, to be honest. People started noticing, like, I'm a very respectful person. I was one of the, probably I'd say a little bit more on the timid side when I was, even as an executive chef. I wasn't some yeller or screamer. I mean, when I would be, disciplining chefs and stuff like that, I was bold and I was strict, but I was a little bit more timid. And towards the end, I just started really not caring, like, to be honest. And I started, I think, coming out of my shell, like, especially, you might not understand this with all due respect, but chefs have a very high regard to like superiority, right? So, you see these movies where like, yes, chef, that's real. So in my head, since I grew up, I mean, I've been cooking into a professional kitchen since I was 17 years old. So in my head, that was ingrained with me. So for me to go like to my superior and actually, like, I don't want to say talk back, but like be like, no, you're wrong. It started to come out of me those last 6 months. Like I just remember, really quick example. I was in this meeting with our hotel manager and our food beverage manager, and I'm like, they're on me about being 0.21% over on overtime labor, right? And I'm like, okay, you're looking at percentages because I know how these things work. The owners, they see percentages. They just want us, oh, we're in budget on percentage. But I was like, I just saved you $1,180 cash, because if I would have brought someone else in instead of giving overtime, I actually would have had to pay them a minimum of 4 hours. Welcome to California. Minimum of 4 hours, right? And then you would have paid more money, as opposed to just having 2 guys do 2 hours of overtime, things like that.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there trying to explain it, and they just wouldn't hear it. And I just kind of like lost, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'll line up your percentages, and I don't care if I'm $10,000 over. I'll just stay with your percentages. It didn't make no sense to me on a business standpoint, by the way. But it was kind of one of those bait breaking straws for me too. And they're kind of like, what's gotten into you, chef? And I'm like, this is stupid. Like, it's dumb. Like, so those types of things really, I think, started to play out in me. And I saw that, and I didn't want to become somebody I wasn't as well. And so I just kind of was like, you know what, I have to change. I'm not happy. And my wife knew, of course, some people knew. It's not like my whole persona changed, but because I was kind of, like I said, in that depressive state, it was kind of like people were starting to notice, like, hey, are you all right? And I'm like, not really. Like, I'm kind of miserable at my job. I'm like, what? Yeah. Like, you're the executive chef and it's so cool. And I'm like, no, it's not really that cool. Like, but yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's fast forward now. Then you decide, let's leap into being my own entrepreneur. I'm going to go on my own quest and I'm going to figure this out. And I'm really glad that you brought up the point that in the beginning, like it wasn't that easy, but you had that idea of, if I can just figure out the money piece, like I'm happy, this can work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's also, and I think you would agree with this, Brie, like as an entrepreneur, you're going to hit levels as well. You're going to hit peaks and valleys, and you got to get that mentality right. Like happiness is not derived from money. The faster you realize that, the faster like your whole life changes, like, to be honest. So it's funny how here I am 10 years later, in a way, 9-10 years later, and it's the same principle. The money is really not the driving force in the happiness. Even pre-podcast, I was just telling you how I've been crying and being all grateful towards, I've been so emotional this holiday season, more than I can. I'm a pretty sensitive, emotional guy, but more than I remember in the past. And I think it's because I'm really understanding the true meaning of really, again, joy and happiness. Like my family's amazing. I get to see them every day. I got a roof over my head. I mean, we're blessed. So like, is the business going well? Yes. In chefpreneur, as we started to coach chefs and that organization, that's up and down, because we're continuing to help, when you're really setting out on a bigger mission other than just, your own direct business, and you want to help people and coach people, aka you, me, it's tough. It's tough. It can get tough because you're dealing with people and you're dealing with all their baggage and all their emotion, and you're wanting to do the best for them. But mentally and emotionally, it can be tough. But yeah, I mean, my personal chef business now is just thriving. I mean, that business is going so well. And, not to sound arrogant, but to give you guys an idea of what's possible is, you have to understand, I was working 60, 70 hours, a week, in my corporate executive chef job 10 years ago. And I spend maybe 3 hours on my personal chef business a week. I mean, I do payroll and I answer a few questions, take a couple calls from my executive chef, and the rest is running. To be honest with you, I spend all my time coaching students now, which is what I really feel I'm passionate and really giving me more fulfillment than anything I've ever had in my life. But what was so scary to start 10 years ago is literally providing me income where I'm not having to do much for it now. The business is running and the business is now working for me as opposed to me working for the business. So, but I mean, when you fast forward, like you're asking me, or what you're telling me is like, as I look on it again, it's really about it's not just everything that is going to make you happy, because you're going to have to go through some things that aren't very fun, but that's where your mission and your why come into place. And I tell my students all the time, like, if you're going to start a real business, there's no way, if you do it just for the money, I mean, you might as well not even start. You're going to fail before you even begin, because when the times get tough, you have to have a bigger mission. You have to have a reason for going all in. And in those times, my mission was for my family, to see my family. Even though I was broke, I had more time with my family for the first 3-4 years until the business really grew. Then the business started growing. And now, like you said, I figured out the money part, and I was having that time with my family. I can say no when I wanted to say no. I can go to church again because, now if there was a big party or something, I was going to make a lot of money. And okay, then I'd rather miss church once every 3 months than be like, I can't go to church ever. Right. And then, even now it's like, now I have a lot more freedom, and, the mission has to be deeper than just the money. And I really believe that's where you find full fulfillment. I mean, like I was telling you before the podcast of how many chefs were sending me like videos and on my birthday and all types of stuff. I got really emotional because that is far superior to anything the money can buy. You can't pay people to do that. And that's real impact. And so, I would probably encourage your, the listeners to say, like, really find that why. The why can be your initial situation of like, again, hey, I want something better for my family. Yeah. But then eventually your vision has to grow for it to really drive you. Because I'm noticing that the bigger hill you climb, the more grit and determination you need to get over it. And it's not, trust me, the money eventually becomes like, you have to ask yourself, people like Elon Musk, he doesn't need money. No. Why is he doing what he's doing? Because there's something innate about him that says, I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave a mark on this world. And yes, money is a tool that can help me get there, but he's not doing it to acquire more money. In fact, I don't think money even means anything to him. Yeah, because he's rich. No, it never meant anything to him. When you really look at some of the big success stories, it's because of their mission is far greater than them just making money. Right. And so, but here's the amazing thing: when you make more impact and make more, and you draw more impact and draw more legacy and do something that really moves the needle in this world, what's funny is the money comes with it because you're creating a big splash. So hopefully that encourages anybody. I mean, anybody who's wanting to start any kind of business that they feel called to do in their heart, like, make sure you really hone in and get clear on your mission, because without that, in the moments that it does get really tough, that's I hate to say it, but that right there, that one thing is the thing that's going to sustain you to keep going and moving forward and not give up. Because if it's just about the money, the minute the money doesn't come, or the minute it doesn't show up for 6 months or a year or whenever, you're going to be like, oh, and then it's like your mission was not accomplished. Therefore, yes, you then fell, you'll give up. So just keep on going. But yeah, I would just give that piece of advice to everybody, like, to really make it way more about money means nothing, to be honest. Trust me, I haven't arrived at some level yet. I mean, I'm successful and to a degree, but like, I'm not some multi-millionaire. And it's like, I'm so over money right now. And it's honestly so freeing to say that like, when it does come, it's like, whatever, like, who cares? Like, my wife is still my wife. My kids are beautiful. Again, it was just, that gratefulness, but
beautiful.
Yeah, I hope I wasn't going on and on.
I'm glad you brought up the word impact. Where was that transition for you? And this is where I see a lot of people will talk to me about, I have this dream, but they maybe don't want it forever. They see there's like certain building blocks or steps they need to take to get there. And they think, if I make this one decision, I'm going to start this one business, it's my life forever. You now have a couple different things going on. You've transitioned from personal chef business, building a team, to coaching chefs.
Yeah.
Explain to me that transition and what kind of inspired that, and how you're able to spread impact now, because built some more muscles up your when you were climbing your hill, we'll call it.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. The leg muscles there. So the transition again, so here's in a really simple answer. That's a great question, Brie. Actually, that's probably one of the better questions I've ever been asked on a podcast, honestly. And I think I can really sum it up actually in a short summary, in a short sentence for people to understand this. Like, you don't necessarily have to know the exact destination of where you're going all the time. Like, let that go. Like, I don't think, again, going even back as a metaphor to use Elon Musk, like, I don't think Elon woke up and was like, one day I want to be in space. Like, he ended up coding. He learned coding, and then he dropped out of college, and then it's like, okay, then he sold PayPal, and then he took everything he had and invested it in Tesla. And then it's like all these things. And so it becomes almost fluid, where it's like, I even tell people, like, I know chefpreneur is going to be around for a long time. Mm-hmm. But what else is in store for me? I have no idea. Like, I don't. And I now know that because of the journey I've taken, and opportunity presents itself. And one of the things, like, just to kind of maybe tell them about that transition, it really didn't happen on purpose per se, if that makes sense. Like, I started getting success in the personal chef business, and then people started noticing that were like connections of mine, people I've worked with before, other cooks, chefs. And then eventually it was like people that I didn't know was like, hey, like DMing me, like, hey, like, how are you doing this? Like, how are you flying to Hawaii with clients? And what are you even doing? And then it was like, oh, and then it was like one day I just kind of felt like maybe people want to learn this, and there's really nothing out there to teach them. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, here's that big fear again. Because to be honest, like, a personal chef business is very different than a coaching business. Oh, yeah. So here I am. It's like, I'm not a teacher. I'm not qualified. I'm not a professor, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I learned by a really great guy named Russell Brunson, who we both know, right, from ClickFunnels, the founder of ClickFunnels. And he always used to say, as long as you're one step ahead of somebody, you can help them. And it's so true. It's so true. Like, even if you're like 18 and you've been driving for 1 year, you can probably give some pointers to a 17-year-old who's just starting to drive, right? Like you just have to be one step ahead. And so I would put that in the back of my mind and be like, okay, let me do this crazy thing. And maybe somebody will want to learn and listen. And we're going on now 4.5 years since we launched Chefpreneur. We've coached hundreds of chefs. would I've liked to be further along? Yeah. But to be honest with you, then that's also kind of like arrogant for me to say, because one life impacted is probably worth it already. And we've definitely impacted more than one life. That's for sure. But I'm also not content with where we're at. And so the transition for me was like, didn't really happen automatically. It wasn't like I had this on my big to-do list plan of my life.
Right.
I think that life is an, it's a flow, and things happen. And I really believe God brings opportunities to us at the right time. And we need to know how to seize those opportunities and take heed. If your mindset, quote unquote, would change and be in a constant state of seeing opportunities around, I'm going to give maybe your listeners one really big angle that I think a lot of chefs said that really spoke to them during the pandemic. And this was something that I felt like, honestly, whether somebody believes it or not, I felt like it was direct from heaven. So many people in the pandemic. Now we have, since 2022, we have, since 2020, we have this mass exodus of people shifting jobs and careers, and they call it this what do they call it? The mass resignation. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's what's funny about this, and I really believe this applies to all of us. And I told this to the chefs, because in 2020, what was some of the biggest businesses impacted by the pandemic? It was restaurants, it was hospitality, it was hotels. And so one year in 2019, as I'm preaching on my podcast, start this business, then the next year, all restaurants go out of play and a lot of them lose their jobs.
Yeah.
Now, my business as a personal chef shut down for like 2 months, but I will tell you, even in 2020, we ended the year in my personal chef business 28% in higher in sales than the year before. So even with 2 months paused, we actually grew, because now there was like, especially in California, there was like no places to dine at. And people were like, I'm not going to go dine in an alley in downtown San Diego. Like, I'm just going to have a chef come to my house. Like, I've never done this before. And now, I don't want to pitch chefpreneur, but that's why I believe being a personal chef as a culinarian is the future of the industry. But and what we preach on my podcast. But at the same time, here's what I really want everybody to understand. It's all about perspective of your mindset of how you look at things. And so many chefs were coming to me at the end of 2020. Oh, I should have pulled the trigger on your program last year. And it's like, I think all of us think, and I really want you guys to get this out of this whole podcast. I hope that your audience gets this one piece of advice from me, because I really believe it's that important. Instead of looking at it as like the pandemic shifted to create more opportunity, although there can be some truth to that, I truly believe the opportunity has been there the whole time. The pandemic got you to see it.
Yes.
It's like almost unveiling the opportunity.
Yeah.
So I really don't believe, I even told all my chefs, if you think this pandemic created more opportunity, you're wrong. It just got you to finally see the opportunity, that it was there the whole time. Because I started my personal chef business, 7 years before the pandemic. That had nothing to do with the pandemic.
Exactly.
And so anybody who's wanting to start a business and even, work with you, Brie, on their mindset or on their business and what you do, like, you guys have to understand, start acting like there was a pandemic every year for you to see the opportunities in front of you. Because as simple as the cliches are, yesterday's gone, tomorrow's not promised, today's what you have.
Yeah.
And really, I live my life by that, to a point where I'm not saying don't plan for the future, of course, but we really don't know what it is. So when you ask me the question, how do I transition to chefpreneur? I had no idea when starting my first business, chefpreneur was going to exist. I had no idea. But in order to have how could I coach other people if I didn't start the personal chef business to begin with? So again, like, always look at your guys' path in your life as one, like almost like a stop, and then another stop and another stop. And there's really no set destination as long as you're moving one station ahead, like one more station. Let me get to one more station in my life. One more station. I don't know what's going to be, how I'm going to be impacting people when I'm 60 years old. I'm excited to find out whatever opportunities come my way. But I just really feel like people need to understand that, like, start waking yourself up to see the opportunity that's been in your life the entire time since you've been born.
Yes.
And some of these things that happen in the world are just unveiling those opportunities to be found.
Beautiful. Oh, I love that. And so what you're also saying is, what I'm hearing behind this is that it's never too late to start something. You haven't missed any opportunities either, because they're always there if you're willing to open your eyes to it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I truly believe that wholeheartedly. It's never too late. At the worst, you might have delayed certain things because time, but because we don't have, I can even get deep on that. Recently, unfortunately, I lost a really good friend of mine, a business mentor, this past year. Meant a lot to me in a large group of our men at church, and a great entrepreneur. And, when he passed away, and he was young, and he passed away, and his family was really bitter. Like, he should have taken, he had type 2 diabetes. He wasn't, quote unquote, not that he was eating like a horrible slob or anything, but, he wasn't doing everything he was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to try to cry on this podcast. I won't. I promised myself I wouldn't get emotional, and I'm not. But I want to share with you guys, like, one thing I saw about his life was, he passed away, I believe he was 61, I believe. And it was, he's young. But this man was he wasn't one of the most generous people I've ever met in my life. He was the most generous person I have ever met in my life. When you talk to people in our community, everyone has a story with Bill, everybody. And it wasn't just like this one little story. It was like, he bought me a car. He paid for my rent for 6 months when I was a single mom. When I'm talking about generous, this guy had no bounds. There was even one point, and again, this is publicly saying this now, but, people don't know him in the audience, but, he came up to me. He's like, "Chef, if you ever need $50,000 or $100,000 for cash flow for your business, like, call me. I'll have a check with you in an hour." And I'm like, who randomly, after you just eat dinner with them with French fries and burgers, comes up to, and I was like, kind of chuckling. He's like, "No, I'm serious." And then everybody's like, "No, Chef, he's serious. Like, that's the kind of guy he is. Like, wow. He would do anything for you. Like, he had your back." And here's the big lesson I learned from that. It's never too late, Brie. And here's the thing. Some people, again, this is going to sound really bad, me sitting here as an obese guy. Okay. I'm not exactly in shape, and I'm working on losing weight. Okay. That's a separate subject, but it doesn't mean don't take care of yourself or anything like that. But what I'm getting to the point is that some people live life that's not worth living. Like, in my opinion, Bill at 61 impacted more people than most people impact in 3 lifetimes. So you can sit here and you can say, "I want to live till I'm 90, and I'm going to jog every day, and I'm going to focus on my physique, and I'm going to do all these things. And I got enough. I got a good enough job. It's good enough for me and my family. I'm okay. I don't want to go out there and do something big. I don't want to impact the world." What kind of a life is that? Like, to be honest, like, what's 15 years added onto your life when you're not even doing anything with the years you have now? What's the point? That's honestly, in his death, what I saw. And it really captured my heart to say, I got to start living life every day to the fullest. And what really matters is impacting people, loving on people, making an impact in this world. And that doesn't mean that you have to go out and be a Tony Robbins to 50 million people. It could be like, let me take 5 people and help teach them what I know, that want to learn what I know. Let me go out there and find, even a couple of my cousins that are, 17 and kind of don't know where they wanted their life to go. Let me just talk to them. Let me mentor them, because I'm 28 and I'm a professional. I can give them some advice. Like, we don't even do that anymore for people. And Bill was always there to give me advice. He gave me not only really good advice, but like sound advice for my relationship, definitely in finance. This guy had, he was doing $30 million a year in his company, a Rolex for every day. I think he could wear a Rolex every day and not run out of Rolexes. But the money he didn't even care about that. Like, he did not care about the money one bit. And he would just be like, "You need something?" Like, he had it. Like, he would tip waitresses when we're out to eat $200 on an $18 tab. I mean, this guy was so generous. And I thought to myself, and I even told his family, like, yeah, Dad probably could have taken better of himself, right? Bill could have done better, but he lived such a full life at 61 that most people don't. And I would rather have his life at 61 and be gone than be 95 and be like zero impact, no, like a blip on the radar, if that makes sense. So absolutely. I know that's kind of like sounds cruel, but like, again, I'm not saying don't extend your life to 95. I'm not saying don't exercise and don't like try to live better. But, but again, you have to also understand, like, what am I doing with the time I have now, the resource I have now? With, like, Brie, you teach us all the time. And honestly, like, you'll be much more fulfilled. He just everyone knows somebody who needs some level of direction that they know good enough to allow them in their life in some form or another. doesn't have to be like so-called a mentorship, but just even to encourage them, make it something like where every day I'm going to call this person once a week and just love on them. Hey, how you doing? Anything I can help with? Any advice you need? Like, what's been going on? How's your job going? Like, we don't do that anymore. And I'm telling you, if you're feeling unfulfilled, start there and you're going to start feeling fulfilled. And you're going to start saying, wait a minute, this is for some of this to bring it out, because it becomes bigger than money and yourself. It's like, I'm actually imparting it to another human being. And so like, anyway, I hope that inspires people, because I just, I think some people don't know where to start. You probably agree with that, Brie.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
And just start with your direct, like the people around you, just do something for them. And that's what Bill did. Bill's like, I don't know anything about cooking. He's like, I go out to eat every night. Like I can afford it. Like my wife doesn't cook. We have a beauty. He goes, he was so funny. He's like, I bought her all the pots and pans, but we don't cook. But he had such wisdom. And when he would give me advice, it's like, I don't know about cooking, but man, when he would just say certain things, I was like, I literally took notes sometimes of just him telling me stuff, because there's just so much wisdom there. It's like, and that was what he enjoyed doing, was imparting people. It wasn't about writing people checks, although he would help you there too, but it was more about like who he was. And anyway, I'm going on and on, but I just think it's such an important factor, because especially if you're trying to start any kind of business, to use your expertise, your knowledge to try to start a business, or maybe you've had a business idea for a long time and it's been burning inside you for 20 years. It's not too late to start. Yeah. And, read the story about Colonel Sanders if you ever feel like it's too late to start. I mean, no one, the one thing that I will say though, is the faster you get started, the faster you'll get there. It's really that simple. I mean, realistically. So you're like, oh, I don't want it to take 10 years. Well, it might take 10 years from now, but with what you have today, it might take 4 years. You don't know until you get started. So basically get started.
Get started, because the opportunity is always there.
It's always there.
We just have to look at it.
Exactly.
I love it. Thank you so much. All right. You've got to get to dinner. So to end, tell us how we can find you, and go ahead and tell us more about Chefpreneur. If there is somebody in my audience that wants to learn from you how to do what you have done, where do they find you? How do we know more?
That's great. So we also have a podcast, the Chefpreneur podcast. We're actually going to be updating that name into the Chefpreneur Show. We're going to be going live on YouTube every Wednesday at 1:00 Eastern. And we're going to kind of treat it like almost like it'll be obviously video, but almost like a radio show as well, where you can call in and ask questions. But then you can also go to chefpreneur.com. So that's chefpreneur.com. And we're actually revising our entire website right now to update with everybody, with all of our programs that we offer. And we have programs for people that are wanting to, possibly be a personal chef, use their cooking experience, their passion for cooking, whether they're a professional cook or honestly, whether they're a home cook and they've had a burning desire for cooking. So if somebody's in your tribe that's like, I want to start a business and all I can think about is cooking and food, Chefpreneur is probably the home for you. To be honest, we can definitely help you build a business with that, whether it's a side hustle or honestly build it up to a company like I've built mine. I can give you the exact blueprint, and that's what we teach. But chefpreneur.com, again, check us out on YouTube and our podcast. So yeah, that's how they can probably plug in the best to our content and find us. Awesome. Thank you so much for imparting your wisdom here, connecting with me again. I love our conversations. I know. I love it. Well, I appreciate it so much. It's such an honor. And again, I always hope I was able to provide value to your audience. And I love you all out there. And listen to what Brie says. She's a smart cookie. She knows what she's talking about. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, everybody. Thank you, Chef. We will see you guys next time.